Would you headline it?
All right, so everybody, welcome to our Wildfire Soul session. Today, we are discussing creative emergence and allowing the freedom, the flow of your self-expression, of source energy. And I think we really want to dive in deeper today on how to communicate all of the elemental energies, so the water, the fire, the earth, and the air, from a place of soul, and really grounding that in and how you communicate your creative essence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Where shall we begin? I'll just give a really real life example of a space that I was in the other day, and I had so much fire coursing through my body. Yeah, I had so much fire, and it was so clean and so pure and so grounded in my soul. And it felt like, they're saying passion versus aggression. So it felt very, very passionate, very convicted, very grounded, but it was coming from my core. It was coming from my center. It wasn't coming from up in the ethereal. It wasn't coming down from like the primal or even the primal part of my mind. It was really coming from this deep, convicted, desirous, passionate place in my soul. And so then I took that fire and I channeled it. And at first, I questioned it just a little bit. And this is something that I've been doing with my fire over the past year, because it's been quite an experience for me to ground that element all the way in. Because I'm used to just being so soft and open and loving all the time. And my guides are really urging me, you need to get into that fire. You need to utilize it. You need to express it, because you need to have a balance of all the energies that are running through your system. And I just know by now that if that is coming through me, especially when it's coming through so powerfully, so crisp, so clean, and so pure, then it's serving a purpose somewhere. My expression, it wouldn't be coming up in me to express if it wasn't going to serve a purpose, either directly or indirectly, and usually it does both. So in that case, it just came through speech, through words, through written language, and it supported other people, and it also it supported me in my own self-empowerment and grounding in my wholeness and my truth and that creative energy, and knowing that it's safe. Yes, this is where we were going. This is where, because this is profound, so let's feel all the way into this. It is safe to be in your full expression of source energy. See, it wouldn't be coming up through you, for you, to be given to the world in some regard if it wasn't serving some kind of a function somewhere in nature, in the ecosystem of awakening is what I like to call it. It's kind of like when lightning strikes. It's serving a purpose to rebalance the atmosphere. And it's the same with us. And so when those things come up, especially when it's so natural and organic and it's just there and it's asking to come out, the last thing you want to do is suppress that, because the suppression of that is actually what creates the undesired result, and the expression of it from a place of soul is what brings us the outcome that we're hoping to achieve in the first place. And it can be scary to go there because we think that the opposite is true. We think, well, if I express this much fire, if I express this much water, if I'm really in my truth and I'm really bold and really just open and naked with life, then everything's going to crumble. People are going to leave. Everyone's going to turn away. I'm not going to get the thing that I've been desiring to receive. And it's the suppression of that energy that actually keeps us from receiving at the capacity that we're capable of receiving. So I'm sure you've experienced the same thing too, but the more, it's just the way it goes, hey? Mm-hmm. The more we creatively express ourselves and give our truth, the more we receive in our lives, the more expanded we become, the more expanded our capacity to receive becomes. And then this whole other magical dimension starts to open up. And it's like, wow, this whole time I've been holding this back because I had so many programs running, so many doubts and fears and insecurities about what would happen if. Meanwhile, it's the very thing that unlocked all the doors, opened all the pathways and gates, and allowed me to step through into this new multidimensional experience where there's so much more magic. And in that freedom, too, because you get to be fully expressed and experience the safety and the beauty of that and all the gifts that that has to bring. I mean, creative expression is directly tied into the amount of abundance that we receive, especially in this new energy. However much creative energy you're expressing out in the world authentically, truly, you're going to see that. And also confidently, I want to say confidently as in from a space of self-love, self-honor, honoring your truth, you're going to see that reflected directly in your financial picture.
100%. Yeah. It's often, it's so, I mean, if you really, really, really tune in and track and focus on what's going on in your life in all areas, it's so incredible to witness and see how often the most minute or indirectly related things or ways of expressing yourself are so directly related to your financial energy and your wealth creation and having that come in. It's amazing. So, you know, if we stop right here, the last thing I would say to you is to just like do the thing that you think is the thing that's not going to get you anything. Do the thing that you think is going to like make everybody turn away from you. Do the thing that you would do if it was your last day on earth or your last week on earth or your last month on earth. How would you be playing full out? How would you be living life? How would you be expressing yourself, right? Would you go run off to a nudist colony? Would you start telling everybody in your family how you really feel about them? Would you start sharing your love and downpour of in tune source energy that you've had all this time and you've been hiding it from the world? Would you start sharing that all over the place on social media? Would you be dressing funky? Would you be eating something? Those are forms of your expression in enjoying your creative frequency. We are here to enjoy after all. And, you know, I was also kind of tuning in this weekend to certain things that it's not about making things change in your life, people, situations, circumstances, money, finance. Like, it's not about making those things change. It's about switching you over to enjoying those things, how they are, however they are, because when you're in joy, you're fully open to your creative expression, your creative energy. That's when things automatically shift and change. It's not, I need things to change, so I need to figure out how to change them from where they are. It's no, I need to love and accept them and enjoy them, play with them, play with those things you've been resisting, play with those things that just drive you nuts. Play instead. See how creative you really are, how creative you can be to make things shift and morph and change the energy. You know, and the other thing I was tuning into too is I just lost my train of thought.
You're awakening my magical tigress. I'm just so excited to hear you and feel you talking about all of this. It's just open freedom. It's so fucking good. It's just like let yourself be free, liberate yourself. This is why I love old wise people who just don't care, because they're like, life is too short. And the really beautiful thing is, what's meant to crumble will crumble, and what's meant to open and expand will expand. And always in the next expansion, it's more connected, more intimate, more beautiful, more open, more, you know. I was blessing my space earlier, and I was thinking about the word celebration, and I thought, and I was tying it into influence and how powerfully influential you become, energetically speaking, when you celebrate all energies and all expressions of energy. And that starts in here first. I'm going to celebrate my darkness. I'm going to celebrate my mischievous side. I'm going to celebrate the fire in me. I'm going to celebrate all the parts of me. And then we can actually move out and start to celebrate them everywhere else. And because I got an interesting offering outside of my door the other day. Did I tell you this? Okay. So I do, I give offerings to I mean, just thanks, just appreciation to like the elementals and my guides and the fairies and the nature spirits and everything. And I give thanks to the darkness and the light equally in the same. And it was really funny what showed up, because the fairies and the lighter elementals and all of them brought me, there was a seashell, a feather, and a rose quartz crystal. Now I'm in Texas, so there's not just like rose quartz crystal, you know what I mean? So it was an obvious and clear offering. And then there was also some kind of an animal that was no longer living, and it was just its bone structure. And it was the offerings from the different beings and entities that I was connecting into. And I had a really good laugh, because I'm like, oh, you guys are clever. I was like, that's really sweet and I appreciate it, but we're going to need to get that out of here. And it was funny, because the next day the yard man came and it was gone. So they also fulfilled my request to remove it. But it was just really sweet to see how the different expressions of energy show up in their own unique way, and they give in their own unique way. And it was just the sentiment of them doing that I really appreciated. But the fact that I was having that connection with them, and that there was respect and reverence and appreciation and affinity there, that we could communicate and just respect the uniqueness, the authenticity, that creative intelligence was bringing forth, that expression of consciousness and source energy had to bring forth in its own unique way. I mean, I still get a chuckle when I think about it, because I just
I know what I was expecting, but thank you.
I know. It was just but it was just so sweet, because they're like, okay, here you go. And that, because the way that I experience energy, and the way that it truly is for all of us, is that it's all simply a manifestation of consciousness, creative intelligence at work. So you're going to get all shades on that spectrum. And it's really beautiful when we start to celebrate the full spectrum of that, because you realize that even in the darkness, even in the fire and the anger and the sadness and all the emotions that are typically not out overtly on display in our lives, that we kind of keep happening behind closed doors when we're in our own intimate private space, and we don't know if we'll be fully received in our full expression by others. And it creates some degree of separation from that deep intimate connection that's possible when we really let ourselves go there with one another. Where was I going with that? I gotta love when that happens.
Both of us today.
I know, right? You gotta love when that happens. What do you remember what the first part of that sentence was? Yeah, I know, right? Oh man.
It is important that we're discussing this, though. Is for me, myself personally, there was a chunk of time in my life where I started waking up to these elements and these elemental energies, and I really resisted them hardcore if they were not earth and they were not water, which are my main elements of source. Because for me, whenever I was in the fire or air energy, it was always I judged it, first of all, and it was uncomfortable for me. And it was always driven by some sort of unconscious fear, really unconscious energy. And then on the other hand, I mean, when I met people who were really in their fire energy, or even my partner, he's very air, right? And I'm not. So I would resist that hardcore, and I would judge it so much because it wasn't, what I was comfortable with and what I was used to. However, now it's really abundantly freeing, they're saying, to enjoy and play in all of these different energies, because every single one of them brings forth a certain entity, a certain galactic entity, a certain piece of your internal and external being, a piece of your desire, a piece of your heart, a piece of your soul that is wanting to express and create something whole. And if all four of these elements come together and make something whole, who are you if you're only willing to express one part of the whole? And it is important to love and appreciate them, because when you love and appreciate them, you ultimately release the fear of being in unconsciousness, is what they're saying. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm really glad that you just went there, because my thing came back. It's what makes us whole. And it's just that when we, God blessed, it was there and now it's gone again. What is happening? Okay. Let's see if we can pull this back through. Jeez Louise. I mean, it's just about, I'm feeling it's just integration. It's being whole. It's loving all the different parts of ourselves, the darkness and the light. And, oh, man.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, we're just going to stream that back through. It'll come when it's meant to come.
Yeah. Go ahead. Liberation, because you realize when you when you go into those darker parts of yourself and you express those darker parts of yourself and you find the beauty in them, you realize that there's really nothing to fear. I mean, but there's that getting intimate with those darker parts, those taboo parts, those parts that aren't socially acceptable, the parts that have been shamed and like pushed back behind the scenes, behind the curtains where no one can see them. And you realize that they carry a lot of intelligence in them. They carry a lot of wisdom in them. There's a ton of revelation in them. I mean, I remember when I started integrating, it was more of my primal sexual energy and some of the really taboo desires that I had. Not that I was living them out, but that they were in there and that I was allowing myself to be really honest and raw about what they were. It unlocked so much information, so much intelligence, so much revelation that I would not have received if I hadn't gone there and just stopped shaming myself. And the whole key there for me was to not resist myself anymore, to stop the inner battle, to stop the inner war that I had going on, that I was perpetuating against myself. And it was interesting because at that time in my journey, I tried everything to avoid going there. I tried all the ooey gooey warm light stuff and the invocations and the prayer ceremonies and all of that. And they're like, we're just not even going to give you the next expansion here until you just be honest and go there with yourself. And at first I thought that's what was creating the discomfort, was that existed within me. But what was actually creating the discomfort was my resistance to it. Uh-huh. And when I finally just, said, okay, this is here, this is real, this is true, this is what it is, I'm going to just let it be and embrace it and line up with it and just, like you were saying, enjoy it. And that's another key piece around enjoyment too, is that it doesn't always have to look like, it doesn't always have to look the way that we think joy is going to look, right? Like, happy and smiley and bubbly. Sometimes it can be like, for me, it's like I can get into this really exhilarated, seductive, enchantress energy that's a little bit darker, but it's also so much fun. And I receive enjoyment out of being in that aspect of myself. And we were talking about making that a game the other day, where it's fun because you're like, well, I'm just going to slip into this role for a little bit and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to play with it. So there's still a lightness to it, but and you're bringing the enjoyment to the aspects that for so long in our culture and religion and society and spirituality have been shamed and we've been told that they're not okay. And it's really just about celebrating and enjoying everything. Mm-hmm. However it is. And that was a huge lesson for me, man. I kept the word my guides kept showing me, celebrate. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now. Like, I've got all this stuff going on in my life. I can't celebrate right now because I was so in the thick of it, Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, but celebrate your ferocity, celebrate your anger, celebrate your fire. And I was finally, after like a month of just not
really realizing what needed to happen for me to create that next expansion. There's so much inner tension, and it doesn't normally build in me like that for that extended period of time. And I just, whatever I tried, I'm like, why? And it was because the integration was so different from what I had ever experienced before. And then when that finally clicked, I was like, oh man, there's so much freedom here, and so much power that we have trapped up and stuck inside because we've been suppressing it, holding it in, judging ourselves, afraid that the world's going to come crashing in, or we won't be liked, or we won't be received. And, you know, in some cases that may be true. Not everybody's going to be able to receive you, but the important people, your allies, the ones who are going to be there to grow with you and build with you and expand with you, will be. And that's really what you want anyways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And the other thing they're bringing me to is, and we were talking about this as well, I think last week, is, well, number one is when you begin to just play with the different energies, release yourself from reactivity. When you're just constantly in play, and you're not reacting to somebody else's energy, you're dancing with it, you're morphing with it, not morphing around it, but you're morphing with it, and you're drawing it in, and you're playing, you're creating something new. I mean, that's why, I thought about this the other day too. You know, that's why there's couples who just stay together forever, and they say they're so extremely blissfully happy, like they're just, and you can tell they've got that fire and that passion, but they fight all of the time. And you're like, you know, it's the difference between a couple who fights all the time and goes to therapy about it and dwells on it because there's in so much emotional reaction over it. Like they're just, versus the couple who just like takes it as lighthearted and sees it as we're just naturally creating friction with one another. So we'll like have that ebb and flow of that fire and that passion. I mean, they don't necessarily have to be conscious of that, but I was just thinking about that. The other thing I was thinking about, as you're talking right now, is we were talking last week on looking to the person's soul, like just communicating with the person's soul, or the entity's soul, or just the soul of the experience or the environment. Even the soul of money, if we're talking about like building your finances, the soul of your business, the soul of your clients. And as soon as when you do that, you have power over all. Power overall, because you're connecting to the root core, you're seeing the root core, you're not like this surface, whatever the surface is, doesn't phase you anymore. It's all just bullshit, and it's just games, and it's just this, and it's just that. I mean, it's really, there's so much more that meets the eye. And when you go to the soul of everything, that's when you really have your true power at the end. It's just coming out of nowhere. I don't know, probably to remind somebody who's on here watching this of that. But
yeah, no, that's really imperative that you say that, because, and that's kind of like when I do those offerings and I'm collecting in with deities and spirits that most people wouldn't go near with a 10-foot pole. And I'm just like, come on in, guys, like, let's play, let's hang out. Because I'm going to the essence of them that is raw, creative potential, source energy, expressing itself in its own unique and beautiful way. And I see that beauty. I really do. I see it and I feel it. And that is the core of what it truly is at the base fundamental energetic level. And we are that. Like the darker entities and all of that are the same as us. We're all fundamentally made out of the same stuff, and we choose to express differently. And that's what makes creation so beautiful and fun and playful. And those moments of friction when you get to like create that and kindle that fire with somebody else. And then you just choose what you want to make of that. Do you want to make it playful, or do you want to make it your worst nightmare? Like, what do you want to do with that energy? And it really comes back to choice in those moments too. And that's when your capacity to direct energy, to influence energy, is at max capacity, because you're connecting in with the soul of all energy, the soul of all parts of you. And you're saying, hey, listen, I appreciate you for what you are. Thank you. I love you. Here's this powerful invocation. Let's make this happen. And you've got that foundation of respect. And when you have that foundation of respect and affinity with all energy, then that exponentially increases your ability to influence it. Like, you're not going to let somebody who doesn't respect you have any influence over your experience, hopefully, unless it's incredibly unconscious and you don't realize that you're allowing them to do it. And that's like the key first step. So this is the way that they show me is integration. Integrity is being able to be with the isness, being able to merge with the isness of all energies, which is a tough piece for some people, because it's not even looking at some energy as separate from yourself that might be darker or a little bit more mysterious and being like, oh, okay, you exist and therefore I respect you. It's like, can you merge with that energy? Can you take it into your soul and recognize it as a part of you, as a part of your own expression, even in most cases? Because we all contain all parts of that whole. So the more integrated, the more merged you are, the more you're able to bring all aspects in through your heart, your soul, your being, and just be one with it, the more powerful and influential you become, particularly energetically speaking. I mean, in the physical too, and in person, because you're able to relate to and meet, you're able to meet other energies, you're able to meet other people, you're able to really be there with them and connect with them exactly where they're at, whatever's going on with them, because you have that affinity. Yeah, it's really powerful. So those are some of the gifts of those integrations, aside from like the spiritual things that we've been taught. Well, you're not spiritually integrated unless you blank, blank, blank. It has nothing to do with that. It's just, how free are you? How free of fear are you? Because when you merge with those energies, first by identifying them in yourself and being like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe some of the things that I see that I dislike in others, I dislike because they're a part of me that I haven't acknowledged yet. And that's just raw truth. Like the reason it's being resisted there is because that's a part of you that you're not currently lining up with. That's there. We've all got these different aspects in us that pop up at some point or another in our lives. Whether it's happening in the present moment or it's happened before or it's going to happen in the future, we contain them because we contain the blueprint for the whole deal. And so it's just coming to meet those parts within when they come up. And then you realize they're not so scary and you understand them better. You understand like, oh, this is maybe why that person acted that way or responded that way or did this thing. Or maybe that's why, Donald Trump does some of the stuff he does. And that's not saying that you have to choose that to be a part of your experience, that you have to move forth and continue selecting to play with those energies if you don't want to, but to just become aware that they are a part of you. They do exist. They're part of creation. They are here. And you can set yourself free by just not resisting them, by becoming one with them, lining up with them, seeing them for what they are. And because when you want to push away from that, when you're choosing not to choose it out of fear, then that will always show back up in your reality because that's part of your unconscious. But the minute that you meet it and you say, okay, I'm conscious of you, I see you, I'm going to take in that you're a very real representation of consciousness. I'm going to be with this. I'm going to stare it right in the eyes. And then I'm going to consciously choose to have another experience. That's a whole different ballgame. But when you are just like, oh, that stuff doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not part of my reality, that you're resisting it and denying it in yourself. And it's going to keep showing up and playing out on your screen until you just acknowledge it. And the key place, the primary place to start doing that is in yourself. Okay, well, the things that I can't stand in the world, where does that exist in me? Or if I see that thing in me and I acknowledge that thing in me and I appreciate and love that thing in me, then I can move forward and be like, okay, I don't still have to like be fully on board with that thing, but now I'm conscious of it. So it's conscious. I brought my unconscious on board, and then I can choose to polarize to a certain conviction or belief or stance or passion or whatever inside and not choose it anymore. But then it doesn't like surprise you and freak you out when it shows up in the world through other people and in different settings and all of that. You're just like, oh, I've met that before. Cool. I've seen that energy before. We've danced. We've played together. I'm aware. I'm self-aware on all the different levels. So I'm not, in shock that these things exist.
And that, I mean, again, that's where your true power really lies, when you're not afraid of interacting with different types of energies. Because deep down inside, they're all a part of who you are. You're witnessing them, if you're experiencing them, if you're walking by them, you know, I'm to an extent, to a certain extent, right? So you don't need to be afraid of them. You don't need to push them away like you're so separate from them. They're even they're calling me to use the example of segregation and what was going on in our country in the 50s and 60s and the 70s and even way before that, obviously. And using that example on how so many people were just terrified to be around other people of a certain pigmentation of their skin or a certain identification. They were just terrified. And the reaction that came out of them on how they acted and treated these other human beings just based on a perception of, you're so different from me and I need to be afraid of you and I need to stereotype you and I need to judge you and it's bad to be around you. Yet we're all still human beings. They all are made of the same flesh and the same blood and the same heartbeat and the same everything. And so I'm being called to use that example in regards to what we're speaking to, and knowing that you're all one and the same. Energy is energy. It's just being expressed differently than how you choose to express it, but you still have a part of that inside of you, even if it's just one minute, minuscule ounce. This kind of plays into let's take it over here where if you go into more of this kind of area of spirituality or whatever, and on how there's knowledge / belief systems out there that the human body was implanted with certain types of evil or dark energy, and that's why we kill animals for food, and that's why there's murderers out there and stuff. Well, if and just using this as a metaphor, that means that if somebody's a serial killer or somebody's a meat eater and you're a vegan or whatever, you still have a part of that inside of you. You're just choosing to not express it. And I'm using these extremes to really just get you to dig in deep and recognize energy is just fucking energy. Like you have it all inside of you. It's a choice whether or not you want to experience it or draw it out. And that's what we're saying is be less selective, be more open to what you are actually truly wanting to experience and express, because that frees up your energy. And then you can walk down the street and look at all these different energies and say, that ain't no thing. I've seen you before. It's cool. You stay over there. I'm fine. Rather than being shocked and awed and scared and afraid and reactive and needing to push and fight. And I mean, that's no longer your experience. So why are you still playing that game? Like, we have up-leveled to level 50 in the game, and you're still hanging out on level 3 where we used to be, okay? Like, just let it all out and let yourself, again, that's where your real power comes from. That's where... So also, people who believe that you need to protect yourself from psychic attacks or negative alien beings or blah, 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 all of that stuff just comes into your reality to show you that you need to choose your power, that you are not powerless over them, that they're not all of a sudden going to implant themselves in you and siphon all of your energy and attack you and attack your family and this and that. That only happens if you allow it, if you choose to perceive that that's the reality that you're in, that's the dimensional experience that you're in, that energy has more power than you. No energy has more power than you. It's all about your perception of your experience.
Yeah, and there is a profound lesson that I experienced with all of that too at one point, where I was going through such an epic integration and I had so much fear about a thing, and I literally got to a point in my own consciousness where I could hear cogs turning. It was pretty dark, actually. And I felt like I was just in the underbelly of the underworld, and I'm in there and I'm hearing these sounds and I'm hearing these cogs, and I'm like, remember I was in a space, and the only light that was on was a candle that was flickering in the room. And I just was watching the shadow dance on the wall with the flame. And they're like, well, what if instead of like trying to pray this away or keep clearing yourself, what if you actually just relaxed and let it all the way in and become transparent? So that was a beautiful lesson that they taught me about transparency, where it was like, instead of like putting this barrier up in any way, energetically or otherwise, you just become transparent. You're like, okay, you're here, and you just let it move all the way through. You don't even have to, like, there is no, I mean, you can play in this field if you want to, but you don't have to do this like we are separate from each other. Like, fundamentally speaking, they're wanting me to go really galactic with this too in this moment, is that, like, think about the Big Bang, where everything was just, I mean, it's just raw energy and star stuff and sound and frequency and vibration and light and just raw energetic potential. And that's what everything is made up of. And we are all made out of that. So all the deities that we pray to, all the alien intelligences, all the people, all the physical things in our life are constructed of that energetic intelligence. And the way that it's shaped and molded into physical reality is by our point of focus. So like, somebody had the idea that they wanted to create money, and so somebody started printing little green pieces of paper, and now it's all virtual basically. And it's just this invisible, but we've got all these stories attached to it, but everything is made out of that energy. And so when we see other people, when we see other intelligences, other creative expressions of the energy, just recognizing it as an expression of energy, an expression of consciousness, and that it fundamentally is you, because at that point, everything, it was just one being. I mean, I just remember awakening to myself in the void. So we're going to go there. We're going to go, I remember being my I am presence and awakening to myself in the void, and just having this stark recognition that I am something, but it was pitch black and I couldn't see, and I had no idea what I was, but I could feel the bigness of myself. And that's when I started individuating, so that I could look at myself, and what birthed that was my desire to know what I was, the desire to know thyself. But it was still all me. It was still all me. And I was just creating all these individuated forms so that I could experience and explore and create and desire more and expand and discover. And that's really what it is. It's just this playground of consciousness, and different consciousnesses are going to choose to express in different ways. And I think that this is what I would love to start seeing more of in spirituality. And this is why we go supernatural and galactic so much too, is that there's going to be a whole diverse range of expressions. And there's just going to continue to be more and more as people become more honest with themselves and true to themselves and real about what it is that they want and they need and they desire and they want to create. And they release all those inhibitions about expressing what's true for them and letting that come out. Like you're saying, just be a little bit strange, be a little bit wild, be a little bit taboo, let that come out. And so we're going to see a lot more diversity in the expression of the energy. And I think that's the beauty of it. How Pleasantville-esque if we were all the same. And it's, just yeah. And so just looking at it from that, even that energetic perspective of it really just being like this, because I see it. And when you see that gold glitter come up in my energy, that's what I see it like, these particles of ethereal, glowing energy that are just dancing around, waiting to have instruction, waiting to get direction around what do you want to create out of me next, this non-physical substance that is infinitely abundant, being like, okay, just give me the cue, just give me the direction. What do you want to shape out of me? What do you want to make? And that's how powerful we are as human beings, with minds and the ability to focus and direct energy, and hearts, right, that can then really magnetize that in, is that we get to use our brain to create new ideas, to create new desires, to create new form. And that energy is just waiting for us to mold it and shape it and play with it and dance with it and all of that. So it's just raw creative substance that we're talking about here. And there's no limit to what we can create out of that. We can, I mean, Oh, so I'm just going really big now. I mean, it's an infinite creation. There's infinite amounts of expressions of the energy, and that's here now, you know. Man, there's no limitations. There's so many possibilities. What do you want to create next? How do you want to express yourself next? How do you want to show up next? And what if you could trust that because you are the energy, because you love yourself, you as the energy would never put yourself in a detrimental position. You as the energy would always take care of you, and that's how powerful you are. Because then now we're expanding trust from individuated self-trust to self-trust, trusting the I am that I am, trusting me, all of you, and working from that space. I've decided that I'm going to have the freedom to show up in my full authentic expression, and this is the story that I want to build around that, and this is the way that I want that to be experienced, and I trust all of me to support me in that, all of me to be on board with me, and to have the guidance, the protection, the provision, the allies, the whatever it is that you want. And I trust all of me to gravitate that into my experience, to orbit that into my experience. And that, I mean, that's really standing in your power, standing in the power of your I am presence. Not just, it's not just this, it's all of this. And so, yeah, I mean, the more self-aware you become of that, the more powerful and influential you become with the energy, because you can expand your energy out farther. You can expand your energy out into the far reaches of infinity, truly, like however far your mind or your vision will let you go, and you can welcome all of that energy to support you in the creation process, and it will just start moving to direct or to support you. Like when you give a directive, when you give a command, when you boldly state what you want and claim it for yourself, all energy starts moving and working on your behalf.
Yeah, exactly. It's calling in and working with all parts of yourself, all parts of yourself, and moving beyond and moving into the infinite creative potential of what that actually can mean for yourself, which means getting out of your ego, standing in your power, learning self-trust, learning self-love, blah, 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 the things that we all know and hear and say, but on a more expanded, magical, galactic, infinite, universal, light, dark, all between level. Like just expand upon your creative potential. And I want to bring up something that somebody asked me the other day, because she's someone I worked with before, and those of you who know me know that at least for the large portion of this year, I've really just carried forth the torch with this galactic energy, right? And so she's been seeing all the work you and I have been doing, and she's been reading about the infinity circle and seeing the interplay of the whole kind of galactic intelligence, that universal expansion kind of feel and information and gifts and abilities, along with our explanation, our expansion of that more magical, grounded, witchy, sorcery, elemental type of technology and energy. And she just asked me, she was like, are you stepping away from the galactic energy? Are you moving into this, this new type of stuff? And I'm so happy she asked that. And I love that that's why you and I have come together, because, I know you've had the same energy that I have had for quite some time, but I don't think you've been as vocal and open about it until now. And then vice versa. You've really helped me step more into those grounded magical abilities, if we're going to call them anything. And really what we're talking about is we're just talking about bringing forth two different vibrations, two different memories of who we all truly are. And so I loved that she asked me that, because, I mean, that's our work. That's our next phase of evolution. That's us being pioneers, is combining these frequencies, combining these energies, combining these technologies together. I mean, it's really all one and the same thing. But for me personally, there's a lot of things that I still wasn't able to shift quite fully until I started harnessing more lately that magical power and letting that run through me. Because for me, I need a little bit of that darkness. And when I'm just fully in the kind of galactic realm and stuff, it's powerful, and I can make magic happen, but not quite fully to the extent I want to, because it's still so, that energy is still so extremely light for me. It's so pure, it's so light, it's so crystalline, it's so expanded that to ground in this element here in this reality, I really needed to allow myself to step into that energy that I had been resisting, that I've played with before and have always had. It's just I wasn't willing. It was a siphoning of my energy. It was putting myself in a bit of a box. So I love that she asked me that, because if anybody's watching, or if anybody dabbles with one or the other, it's time to combine them all, people. It's time to blend it all together. And I personally, what I feel is all of this kind of like new galactic source energy, just you feel the vibration. I don't need to go into all the different words and vocabulary and how we're explaining this, but I feel that's really what the witches and the sorcerers and that kind of time period was tapping into. They just had to hide it to a certain extent, or they maybe weren't fully aware of who they were connecting with.
Oh yeah, yeah, they knew. We knew. We knew. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got to have the power, the strength, the integrity. That's how I see integrity. I see it as like energetic resiliency, strength, to ground those light, beautiful, ethereal frequencies into the earth, into the physical, into the tangible. This is where a lot of people get stuck with the manifestation, because that comes from your soul. That comes from your soul. And sometimes the light, and it's beautiful, but it's so ethereal, and most people stay up here orbiting in that, and it doesn't come all the way, it doesn't ground all the way into the body, all the way into the earth, all the way down through the root, like into the physical. So you've got to, and this is where the integration of those darker aspects is really important, because when you face them and you realize there's nothing to fear, when you meet them in yourself, when you meet them in the world, when you look them square in the eyes, and you don't resist, deny, judge, suppress them anymore, then you realize in the fearlessness that there's so much power in there. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to have this like invisible barrier out. That's what I'm seeing, is people going kind of like this, just like, oh, like there's just this little invisible barrier, like, oh, I don't know, or I don't know if I want to let that into my energy, because you're automatically giving your power away from it, or power away to it, when you say, like, I don't want to let that in here because blank, 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 blank. Well, what if you could actually just open yourself so much so that you become transparent, and you can actually just receive that energy. You can actually be with so there's a different dynamic there. There's like a resistance and like an off-putting. And I'm not saying that you have to select all of those things in your experience. That's not what I'm saying. I've got some hard, fast boundaries in my own life for things that are really important and valuable to me. And I mean, that's a pivotal part of the journey, but energetically speaking, on a bigger, more vast scale, instead of trying to make these things go away in the world, trying to, just, what if the freedom isn't in them making it go away, and it's just opening to them, letting them in, welcoming them in, going, hey, cool, you're here, you're a part of creation, you're a part of me. There's probably something that you have to teach me, actually, that I don't know about myself yet. So let's dance, let's tango, let's play, and so it's just a different point of perception when you're looking at those. And if you want to phase that out of your experience entirely, that's cool. You can do that too. Which means just not giving any focus to it, not giving any of your, that's so funny. Okay. Not giving your energy or your focus to it. But you've got to make those parts conscious in yourself first before you can even get to that choice point, truly. Because you won't be aware of it. You won't see it. You won't have the perception of that yet. which is another thing that they wanted me to touch on earlier, is that you're literally just, when you open, you're opening your perception to see more of who and what you truly are. And that includes all of you, the dark, the light. We've talked about this 1,000,001 times. The weird, the strange, the taboo, the light, the joyful, the magical, the galactic, all the different parts. And then you get to choose which energies that you want to play in. But when it comes to like some real grounded witchcraft, really taking those galactic, ethereal frequencies and pulling them into the body and grounding them into the earth, you've got to be in your power. You've got to have soul power. You've got to be charged. You have to have inner strength and fire to bring those things into the physical. So it's imperative to fuse those two together. To bring that non-physical all the way into form. And that's, I'm feeling this interesting energy in the people who are trying to manifest, or they're just trying to really open and they're trying to allow. And they're wondering why things aren't showing up. And there's no push energy either. Like there's no fire, there's no push. Like you've got to have both. Right. And in all the different ways that those, even within the context of those two things, or the 5 or 6 elements that we play with the most often, even within that, there's so many other elements and energies to play with and integrate. And that's where the activations are really powerful, because we're activating all of those frequencies and codes, and there's certainly creative tools and creative abilities that you have to shift in and out of. But letting yourself you experience all of those aspects of yourself, and even not even identifying it so much as like an identity of self, but just like a creative frequency that you have to play with, a creative ability that you have to play with, a tool in your toolkit. And let yourself get into those different elements and those expressions, because they're all just as beautiful and valuable and important and necessary. And at some point your being is going to ask you to integrate them, whether it's in this lifetime or next lifetime or somewhere down the road. Like you're going to have to integrate them eventually. Mm-hmm. So might as well hop to it and start playing around with them now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing I'm being reminded of, something that I was pulling through earlier, was also just a little piece of kind of going back to my personal example on resisting that fire energy. For example, I resisted that fire energy because I was kind of playing by the spiritual rule book of needing to feel that peace, that inner peace, and standing solid in that all of the freaking time, which to me meant just super groundedness, super stillness, super lightness, just, and so I resisted when that fire wanted to come out, and that drive and that push. And I'm speaking beyond masculine and feminine energies. I'm going above all of that. But I resisted that because it seemed unspiritual to me, because all the times I had experienced that energy before, again, there was some darkness to it, and that was like, it was like wiping my slate clean. No more. No. Have to just be the Buddha on the mountain now, right? And that just doesn't work. That's like coloring in just black and white rather than using all of the colors of the rainbow. I guess I'm bringing that up just to express allowing those elements to come through you however they need or want to come through you right now. You'll be able to express those particular elements in a number of different ways once you just start allowing yourself to utilize them. And there, it's like we're blessed with this amazing toolbox and toolkit, and we're so resistant to pick them up and use them. You know, it's like
they're just stories.
Yeah, they're just stories. Exactly. Exactly.
It's just programming that you've got to let go of. And they're saying too, like all choices are valid, but if you're looking for actual freedom, liberation, to embody your full potential, you're going to eventually need to shift into that dynamic, fluid expression of self that allows all of those different interplays of energy to come through, expressions of energy to come through in the different moments when they're called for. I mean, sometimes this was a really profound lesson in my life, because I was in that space. I was in that peaceful, open, loving, detached space. And I had a really challenging experience arise in my life where some part of me, my soul, the part of me that was seeking, yearning for more expansion, for more soul growth, brought me right into a space where I was going to have to use my fire. And then I had to, like, I had no choice. Like, you need to become aware that this is a part of you and you need to utilize it, and you don't get to judge or resist it anymore. And it was really like to that extreme, because my soul's kind of badass. She likes to go into these, like, yeah, she really is. I don't even understand like how my human has survived a lot of what she's pulled me into. She's like, we're just going to go over here. And we've talked about this before too. It's like intuitively, like your rational mind is like, I don't think I want to go into this situation, but your soul is like, you're going. There's gifts, there's integrations, there's wisdom here for you. And so you go into it anyways, and you get to experience the extremes. And that's when some of the biggest integrations happen, is when you let yourself polarize, when you let yourself go to the extremes, and you do the thing that you're not supposed to do, like you were saying, or the thing that you've judged yourself for, that everyone thinks is so taboo. And you let yourself go there all the way. You awaken so many other awarenesses within yourself, so many more gifts, dormant potential, creative abilities, so much. There's more of you to love.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just more of you to love. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Oh. Is that a good place to land?
Yeah, I'm like, I really want to stop at that. Like, to end everything we've talked about, just bringing it back to just, everything we're talking about is love at the end of the day.
It is all love. And I think that non-dual, unconditional love, what that actually means.
It's just accepting and expressing all parts of your being.
Yeah, there's no story about it. There's no, we don't get to decide what is lovable and not lovable, acceptable and not acceptable, worthy and not worthy. It just is, because it is, and it is us. Yeah. And it goes for all the different parts and aspects of ourselves. So when we really start to line up with that, you get to actually have a visceral experience of unconditional love in your being, in your heart, in your body, in your soul. Oh, wow, this is what this feels like. This is what it feels like to be so fucking liberated and free that I could stand before a part of myself that I've been afraid of for the longest time, or even energies and entities that I've been afraid of for the longest time, and just actually connect with them, be with them, see them as a part of myself. So much freedom there. So much freedom there to just take it in. And I'm just going to mention this one thing. Remember, I told you I read in one of my books, if somebody ever tells you that they're under magical attack, punch them in the face. Because you're just automatically giving your power away. It's like, well, that only happens if you have a resistance to the thing. But if you can stand there and be with the thing and meet the thing, and look at it and just be like, hey, here we are. Two expressions of creative source intelligence.
Yep. Really,
yeah, it doesn't have any power there to, yeah. So many different ways that can be applied and integrated and considered, but yeah, cool. Well, I love you. We'll get back into the energy of it tomorrow. I need to pull back more of that. I think I need to be in my space too. My space has got all the magic in it.
Yes.
I think I'm gonna set back up in my loft tomorrow. And then I have a surprise guest coming into town on Friday.
Yay!
And
awesome.
We're gonna record some lives, some of our adventures and all of this. So
stay tuned, everybody. Watch out.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun several weeks.
Well, I love you.
I love you too.
For being you.
Ditto. Yeah, I'm so freaking thankful for you. You know this.
Me too.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And everybody's watching the replay. We love you so much. And we can't wait to see you step into more of your expanded, true, multidimensional, technicolor, cosmic, witchy, magical, human, abundant self. Just this is your permission slip to allow yourself to go where you've been resisting for a really long time. Admit to yourself the truth of who and what you really want to do with your life, calling forth all of the magical beings and galactic entities that are parts of your true source to come down into you now at once and flood you with creative energy, power, and love.
Yes. Creatively emerge.
Yes,
you guys are
right.
so loved. Exactly how you are. Exactly how you are. Yeah. Sending you waves of celebration, and before I get too cheesy, we'll hop off.
Yeah, good plan.
I just hope you can feel it. I just hope you can feel it. Yeah. All right. I love you. I will talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.